So here's a question that's always fascinated me. Why is the Bhagavad Gita, a scripture that was composed thousands of years ago, not just seen as some ancient religious
Right.
text, but celebrated, I mean truly celebrated across cultures as the absolute epitome of human wisdom?
That's the paradox, isn't it? That's what we're really diving into today.
It is. It's a dialogue that happens in this moment of ultimate crisis, yet somehow it still resonates with billions of people all over the world.
And it's not just in a spiritual sense. I mean,
Yeah.
we're looking at a 700-verse text that completely transcends that. It holds this tremendous philosophical and practical weight in fields that are so different.
Like modern science.
Exactly. Modern science, medical management, even political resistance. It speaks to these really fundamental questions of, what it means to be human, how we should act, what our purpose is,
Yeah.
like nothing else.
Absolutely. So the question for us today isn't just what the Gita says, but why? Why do these huge figures at the very top of their fields, scientists, philosophers, political leaders, why do they keep turning to this specific text when they're grappling with some of civilization's biggest challenges?
And today, we're going to zero in on what might be its most unique, maybe even revolutionary contribution,
Karma-Yoga.
the science of selfless action. We're going to trace that global footprint, connecting those famous names to the specific ideas they borrowed. And I think you'll find the influences, well, it's far broader and deeper than most people realize.
It's not just a niche thing.
Not at all. It moves from the quiet introspection of a poet all the way to the intense pressure of a nuclear physicist.
Okay, let's start right there, with science and cosmology, because this is where the sheer depth of its philosophy becomes, well, just impossible to ignore.
And you have to begin with J. Robert Oppenheimer.
The father of the atomic bomb.
Yes. I mean, just picture it. This is a man dealing with the creation of ultimate destruction, just the weight of that.
And in that moment, he felt compelled to study Sanskrit.
Right. Just so he could read the Bhagavad Gita in its original tongue. He was clearly looking for something.
A framework for meaning, perhaps.
That's what it seems like. I mean, in a universe he had just helped change, fundamentally and forever. He called the Gita the most beautiful philosophical song existing in any known tongue.
But the moment that really cemented this link, this connection between the Gita and the nuclear age, was the Trinity test in 1945.
That famous moment.
When he quoted, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I think we really need to linger on that for a second because the context so often gets missed.
It does. It's all about the word he was translating, kal.
He interpreted it as death.
Primarily as death, yes.
Mm.
But its more common and maybe more accurate translation is simply time.
And that's a huge difference.
It's a profound linguistic and philosophical controversy. In Chapter 11, Krishna reveals his cosmic form to Arjuna, this, Vrishvarupa,
And he shows him that all the warriors on the field
are already destined for destruction. Because everything, even gods and heroes,
Mhm.
is eventually consumed by time. Krishna basically tells Arjuna, look, you are just an instrument in what time has already decreed.
So Oppenheimer, in that terrifying moment of realization, he saw the vast destructive power of nature or time.
And by unleashing the atom bomb, he felt he had become an agent of that universal temporal destruction. It's the ultimate psychological dissonance, isn't it?
To apply a text about transcendental duty to the creation of an instrument of mass death.
It says so much about the Gita's power to frame even existential horror within a much larger cosmological narrative. And this cosmological depth, it really impressed others too.
Like Carl Sagan.
Yes, Carl Sagan was completely captivated by the deep timescales in Hindu thought.
Yeah.
He pointed out that Hinduism is maybe the only major world faith that is so dedicated to this idea of the cosmos undergoing these immense perpetual cycles.
Cycles of death and rebirth.
Exactly. And here's the remarkable part. These cycles, which are mentioned in the Gita and other Vedic texts like the day and night of Brahma, spanning eons,
Billions of years.
they actually align with modern scientific cosmology. When much of the West was sort of shackled by creation timelines measured in, a few thousand years, ancient Indian thought was already comfortably operating in billions. That mathematical and conceptual scale is what drew Sagan in.
And even before the quantum revolution gave us ideas like unified fields, we had Nikola Tesla.
The genius of alternating current. He was looking to Vedantic concepts for his inspiration.
He openly talked about them.
Oh, absolutely. He cited concepts like Akasha and Prana as being foundational to how he understood energy and matter.
Can you break this down for us?
Sure, Akasha sort of conceptualizes this all-pervading primary substance, like an ether that fills all space. And prana is the life-giving creative force, the kinetic power that causes cosmic creation in these never-ending cycles.
And the connection here is so important. In a purely materialist model, energy and matter are two separate things.
But in the Vedantic view, akasha and prana are basically precursors to modern field theories. The idea that matter and energy are just two different manifestations of the same fundamental unified field.
So Tesla saw these ancient ideas almost as blueprints.
Blueprints for tapping into universal power. Exactly.
And moving from the intense precision of science to, say, the more expansive world of philosophy, the Gita was really the fuel for the American transcendentalist movement.
Oh, it radically changed how Western intellectuals viewed religion and duty.
Henry David Thoreau's praise is just legendary. He wrote in Walden that he bathed my intellect in the stupendous and cosmogonal philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita.
And the line that follows is so scathing. He basically says that in comparison, modern literature just seemed puny and trivial.
That kind of transformative power, it shows the Gita wasn't just, an interesting read for him.
No, it provided a completely different, much more robust framework for seeking truth and moral action. Something he felt was really missing from the rigid, materialistic thinking of his time.
Aldous Huxley felt the same way, didn't he?
He did. He described the Gita not as some parochial religious text, but as the most systematic statement of spiritual evolution.
And a clear and comprehensive summary of perennial philosophy.
Right. He saw it as this global document whose value extended to all of humanity, no matter what their specific creed was.
And that perspective that the Gita transcends sectarian limits, that's precisely why it became so powerful in political and social spheres.
You have to think of Mahatma Gandhi. The very core of his nonviolent social action, satyagraha.
It's drawn directly from the Gita.
It's not just an influence. The Gita literally molded his philosophy. He fundamentally derives his practice of nonviolent resistance, ahimsa, from the Gita. He did it by equating the ideal freedom fighter, the satyagrahi, with the sthitapraja.
The person of steady wisdom described by Krishna.
Exactly. For Gandhi, the fight for independence was the ultimate karma yoga action performed as a duty, without any attachment to personal gain. He used the text to justify necessary action in the world, dismantling that old idea that a spiritual life required a literal retort from society.
And that influence just rippled outwards. I mean, Nelson Mandela in his fight against apartheid.
He embodied the Gita's embrace of pluralism and tolerance. He noted that the philosophy extended a hand to everyone, and he aligned his struggle against injustice with that epic fight against the forces of darkness.
And finally, even in the cutthroat world of modern business where action and results are everything.
Even there, leaders treat the Gita as a fundamental management guide. Gurudev Sri Ravi Shankar captures this perfectly when he says the Gita has the depth of the ocean and the vastness of the sky.
It's a guide for anyone leading a life of necessary action.
It really is.
And that is the perfect segue, isn't it? The sheer breadth of appreciation, from cosmologists wrestling with the nature of time to political leaders wrestling with injustice, it all confirms that the Gita is addressing something universal about the human condition.
And specifically, how we ought to act within it.
Okay, so let's unpack this. This whole discussion on the Gita's profound influence, it really brings into focus a project we launched earlier this year.
Our deep dive, the Bhagavad Gita, a poetic rendition.
The motivation behind that was, I think, simple but really crucial. There's so much written about the Gita.
So many commentaries.
Exactly. But we felt we needed to go deeper. We wanted to go chapter by chapter, verse by verse, to really extract its wisdom. We wanted to experience the poetry of it as much as the philosophy.
And we immediately hit this huge accessibility hurdle, especially for Western audiences.
The language switching.
The constant switching. You're reading a translation and it's jarring. You're going from English to Sanskrit terms to maybe Hindi meter and back again. And that linguistic shift, it tends to just tune out listeners who aren't already scholars.
So our solution was, well, it was both philosophical and technological. We decided to use AI to translate the verses into native English poetry.
And recite it in a natural English meter.
We started with simple poetical translations in chapter 1, you know, just to set the scene, but then we got more ambitious.
We graduated to intricate William Shakespeare-style hymns, and believe me, even Keats-style odes in the later, more profound chapters.
It became this incredible dual discovery, didn't it? On one hand, we were discovering the timeless wisdom of the Gita.
And on the other, we were simultaneously rediscovering the sheer beauty and power of English poetic forms. It kept all the philosophical rigor, but made the experience, well, aesthetically immediate.
It was mesmerizing. And if this topic resonates with you at all, we really urge you to check the description for the link to that original poetic deep dive. It's an essential companion piece to what we're talking about today.
I'm Satosha.
And I'm Satoshi.
Welcome back, everyone, and thank you again for the truly amazing response to our explorations of deep philosophy and science.
It's been incredible.
It has. And, talking about action and aspiration, which is the core theme of Karma Yoga, we have our own form of selfless action that we're pursuing right here.
The duty we perform without attachment to the fruit, right? The effort itself is the reward.
Exactly. Our current duty, our great aspiration, is to make videos of this deep content, whether it's the teachings of the Gita or our recent deep dive comparing it to Plato's Republic.
We want to make videos that are remarkably vivid. Yes, videos that truly envision the depth of these spiritual and scientific epics, because there's only so much we can communicate without visuals.
And this is where the practical constraints of the material world intervene. It forces us to integrate that idea of duty with the need for resources. We need the right tools to bring this vision to life.
Right. And as you know, our immediate constraint is hitting 1,000 subscribers. That's the key to unlocking the funding we need for the Mosaic AI video editor.
The one our marketing team is obsessed with.
They are completely obsessed. They genuinely believe they've found the holy grail of AI video editors that can handle this kind of complex philosophical content.
So we're trying to perform this action with, let's say, sattvic detachment, focusing on the quality of the content and the process.
But we still need the tools to do the job well.
Of course.
Precisely. So, this is a direct plea to help our Karma Yoga. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Share this deep dive in your groups, whether you geek out about deep finance, deep science, or deep spirituality. Every single subscription gets us closer to making the wisdom of the Gita visually accessible.
And we sincerely invite your critique and collaboration if you're knowledgeable in these automated video tools.
Please let us know in the comments if you know of an alternative, a fully automated AI-based video editor that you think is genuinely better than Mosaic.
We're all ears.
You can check out Mosaic at mosaic.so. That's mosaic.so. Every subscription and every bit of feedback helps us perform this duty of translating ancient wisdom into modern media. Now, let's dive into the dialogue that changed history. That dramatic sound takes us right to the opening scene of the Bhagavad Gita.
The battlefield of the soul.
The setting is just so crucial. The Gita is embedded in this sprawling epic, the Mahabharata, and it takes place on the field of Kurukshetra,
which the text immediately defines not just as a physical battleground, but as Dharmakshetra.
The field of righteousness, or duty.
Exactly. So right away, it signals that this conflict isn't just political. It's symbolic of the internal ethical struggles that we all face in our lives.
And this is where Arjuna, the great warrior, suffers this absolute collapse of his will. It's known as Vishada, acute grief and despair.
And he asks Krishna, who is his guide, his counselor, his charioteer,
to position the chariot right between the two armies.
Into that no man's land, the ultimate point of ethical tension. And when he looks across, he doesn't just see the opposing army, the Kauravas.
He sees his own family.
His grandfathers, his teachers, the elders who taught him everything he knows, his cousins, all ready to fight and die. And the sheer proximity to the horrifying consequences of this battle, it just triggers this cascade.
Psychological and physical symptoms.
It's a classic full-blown stress reaction described in startling detail. His limbs tremble, his mouth goes dry, his skin burns, his mind reels.
And famously, his mighty bow, the Gandiva, just slips from his grasp.
This is more than just fear. It's an acute existential paralysis, and it's brought on by this ethical shockwave.
And the paralysis is rooted in a devastating clash of dharma, a clash of duties.
On one hand, Arjuna, as a Kshatriya, a warrior, has a solemn duty, his dharma, to fight against injustice and protect righteousness.
But his immediate moral duty, ahimsa or nonviolence, and kula dharma, his duty to his family, says he must not kill his own relatives and teachers.
He's trapped in an impossible ethical dilemma. He literally asks, what is the point of winning a kingdom if everyone I love, everyone who makes life worth living, is dead?
He's questioning the entire utility of a life dedicated to action if the result is just complete and utter destruction.
And that profound question, it forces Krishna to provide the foundational philosophical answer. one that moves beyond temporary ethics.
Krishna challenges his focus.
He challenges Arjuna's focus on the temporary mortal body, the physical thing that suffers, and he shifts the entire focus to the eternal self, the Atman.
So the solution isn't just to quit or to fight blindly.
No, it's a complex, conscious synthesis of action, performed from a state of enlightenment.
So the solution isn't a single linear path. It's more like an architecture, a unified system of self-mastery.
Known as yoga. Correct.
Mm-hmm.
The Gita is fundamentally a yoga shastra, a science of union, and it was revolutionary because it harmonized the active life, pravritti, with the contemplative life, nivritti.
Before the Gita, those were seen as two separate things.
Absolutely. Mutually exclusive. A binary choice. You either renounced the world to go meditate in the cave, or you stayed in the world and were bound by your actions. The Gita completely rejects that binary.
It brings them together, offering these three main paths that are tailored to different human temperaments.
Different ways we engage with reality.
Let's look at Jnana Yoga first, the path of knowledge. It seems to address Arjuna's immediate grief over death.
Jnana Yoga appeals to the intellectual or rational temperament. Its focus is on discrimination, or viveka, the ability to clearly separate what's real from what's unreal.
So the real is the eternal unchanging soul, the Atman.
And the unreal is the temporary body and the shifting material world, prakriti. It's like metaphysical surgery, cutting through illusion.
And the most profound teaching of Jnana Yoga is the immortality of the soul, which is conveyed through this simple but incredibly powerful analogy.
Yes, Krishna establishes that the soul is never born and never dies. Death is merely the soul casting off a worn-out body and entering a new one.
Just like a person discards old clothes for new ones.
Exactly. That knowledge is what immediately frees one from the fear of death and, crucially, from the lamentation that's paralyzing Arjuna. If the self is eternal, then no one is truly being killed.
That one verse must just instantly reorient someone who's grappling with grief. But that kind of philosophical certainty, it must require immense mental discipline to really internalize.
It does. And that discipline leads to the state of the sthita prajna, the one of steady wisdom that Gandhi so idolized.
What are the specific characteristics that define this person?
The sthita prajna is defined across many verses in Chapter 2. They're very concrete, actionable characteristics. They aren't moved by success or failure. That's samatvam. They're free from desire. They can withdraw their senses from their objects like a tortoise pulling its lings into its shell.
And most importantly,
They act without personal craving. They're awake when others are sleeping, and they sleep when others are deluded by material activity. Their wisdom is unshakable because it rests on that foundational truth of the eternal Atman.
okay, so if Jnana Yoga is the path of the head, then Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion, that's the path of the heart, the emotions.
Right. Bhakti Yoga caters to the emotional temperament. It focuses on total, loving surrender, or prapati. For most of us, abstract intellectual discrimination or really difficult meditations can be overwhelming.
But devotion.
Devotion is presented as a swifter, easier, and more direct path to that union.
And this path culminates in what's called the Charama Shloka, the ultimate verse in the final chapter. It's considered Krishna's most confidential instruction.
That's BG 18.66. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear.
That promise of divine grace overriding the strict, sometimes intimidating laws of karma.
It's the pinnacle of devotion. It's the ultimate reassurance in the entire text.
And what's so fascinating is how radically accessible bhakti is in the Gita.
It's absolutely radical for its time. Krishna explicitly states that devotion is accessible to anyone regardless of their gender, their social standing, or their past mistakes. It completely bypasses all material qualifications.
So spiritual goals become attainable through sincere love and surrender.
Yes, which challenges the rigid social structures that were prevalent at the time.
So we have the path of logic, jnana, and the path of emotion, bhakti. But the true genius of the Gita seems to be its integral theory, where these paths are meant to converge, not compete.
That is the ultimate synthesis. The paths are complementary. A wise person doesn't see karma, action, and jnana, knowledge, as different things. True devotion naturally leads to knowledge, and true knowledge inevitably results in selfless action.
So the ideal state is the Purushottama.
The highest self who integrates selfless action, philosophical understanding, and divine love into a single, seamless life.
And this leads us directly into the massive contribution of the Gita Karma Yoga.
This is what elevates the Gita from a merely meditative text to a guide for living a fully engaged life in a very complex world. It's the spiritualization of the secular.
And the unique thesis here is the absolute necessity of action. The Gita says that physical inactivity, it's an illusion. We can't actually stop acting.
Exactly. Living beings are compelled to act constantly, not by choice, but by the influence of the three modes of nature, the gunas. As Krishna says unequivocally, action is superior to inaction.
We can't escape work.
No. Even just trying to sit still and stop your mind from thinking, that's an action in itself. The mind is constantly planning, reacting, processing.
So the problem isn't the action, but the motive behind the action. This is the pivot point.
Precisely. Actions that are performed with the intent of personal or material gain, what's called karma, they create binding reactions, karma. And that just ties the soul to the cycle of suffering, samsara.
So the only way to get free isn't to stop acting.
But to fundamentally transform the intent of the action, we have to switch from karma to Nishkama Karma.
And this is the profound doctrine of Nishkama Karma, the science of desireless action. It completely redefines renunciation, or tyaga.
True renunciation isn't about giving up the world, it's about giving up the attachment to the fruits of the world. Action must be performed without attachment to the results, the fruits, or phala.
So you perform your duty to the highest possible standard, but you emotionally detach from the outcome.
Exactly.
This philosophy is summarized in what I think should be required reading for every professional. The blueprint verse of ethical action, BG 2.47.
To work alone you have the right, but never claim its results. Let not the results of action be your motive, nor be attached to inaction.
The implications of that single verse for our contemporary work culture are just immense.
Oh, in a society defined by hustle culture, where performance anxiety, fear of failure, burnout, they're rampant. This verse provides an immediate, radical antidote.
If our worth is constantly tied to the results, the promotion, the sales quota, the valuation, we become slaves to these external, often uncontrollable factors.
Absolutely. Nishkama Karma shifts your motivation from the external reward, which is always temporary and unpredictable, to the internal duty, or the process, which is entirely within your control.
By focusing only on the quality of the effort.
The right action at the right time, the professional or the entrepreneur can sustain a long, challenging journey without being emotionally crushed by temporary setbacks. It allows you to commit to the path and to cherish the journey more than the destination itself.
This effectively sanctifies the secular world. You don't need to leave your job or your family to seek liberation.
Your workplace becomes the new monastery.
Exactly.
It tells the householder, the CEO, the student, that their everyday professional duty, if it's performed selflessly, becomes a path to spiritual freedom. This transformation of motive is everything.
The Gita doesn't stop there, though. It provides a practical framework for analyzing how we work by detailing the three modes of material nature, the gunas.
Yes, particularly in Chapter 18, it gives us this diagnostic tool for understanding our own motivation.
So these gunas, ignorance, passion, and goodness, they govern the entire material world.
And they manifest in every aspect of our lives. Our beliefs, our actions, our knowledge, even our food choices. Understanding them helps us refine our actions toward sattva, or goodness, which is the most favorable mode for spiritual progress.
Okay, let's look at the actions governed by the mode of ignorance, or tamas.
Tamas action is performed in delusion. In the workplace, this is action performed out of sheer laziness, procrastination, or despair. The tamasic worker acts in delusion, inflicts injury, neglects consequences.
And often renounces duties just because they seem troublesome.
Exactly. In a modern organization, tamas might look like deliberately hiding mistakes instead of addressing them, or providing superficial, rushed work that requires a complete rework, or just consistently failing to meet deadlines because of chronic procrastination.
It sounds like it leads to chaos.
It does. The tamasic worker is lazy, morose, and works against established procedures, which leads to corporate and professional injury.
Okay, moving up, the mode of passion, or rajas. This seems to define the ambition of the typical, high-achieving, modern professional.
It really does. Radha's action is driven by immense effort, but it's fundamentally characterized by attachment to results, the desire for personal gain, status, greed, and a false ego. The Rajasic professional is often highly effective, achieving great success.
But their motivation is flawed.
It's flawed. The Rajasic worker is constantly anxious about the outcome, highly attached to recognition, prone to burnout because they're driven by this unsustainable greed, and constantly comparing themselves to others.
So even with high output, it's a negative state.
It can be. They might cut corners to meet a deadline for a promotion, engage in internal politics, or prioritize personal glory over team success. While it's productive, This action binds the soul and leads to inevitable dissatisfaction, because the rewards are never enough to fill the void of the desiring self. The stress is just perpetual.
And finally, the highest standard, the mode of goodness, or sattva. This is the goal of karma yoga.
Sattva action is performed only because it ought to be done, as a matter of duty, swadharma. The sattvic worker performs the action without attachment to success or failure, without love or hate for the outcome.
They're internally driven by ethics and quality, not external reward.
Precisely. The sattvic CEO still strives for high revenue and success, but their motivation is detached. The sattvic professional provides thorough, high-quality work, not because the boss is watching, but because the work itself is their duty and their offering.
And that changes everything.
They're enthusiastic, resolute, free from false ego, and indifferent to the fluctuations of the market. This quality of action creates liberation because the individual is acting for the greater good, not for personal consumption.
And this redefines duty, svadharma, which is often misinterpreted as just, caste duty.
Right. The Gita defines svadharma not by birth, but by your inherent nature and quality of work. Perfection is attained by performing your prescribed duties, whether they're intellectual, administrative, mercantile, or labor-based, as a form of worship.
As yajna.
As yajna. And we should clarify that. Traditionally, yajna meant a ritual fire sacrifice.
So how does the Gita transform that?
The original Vedic yajna was about giving back to the cosmos, maintaining cosmic order. The Gita radically modernizes this concept. It transforms that ritual into selfless action. Any action performed for the welfare of others or the divine without selfishness is the modern equivalent of cosmic maintenance. Fulfilling your svadharma with a detached sattvic motivation, that is your personal sacrifice. That is your yajna.
And the final trap that Krishna warns against is the trap of the false ego, the I am the doer mindset.
That is the ultimate illusion that binds us. The unintelligent person thinks they are the only doer. But the Gita asserts that all action is accomplished by 5 factors: the body, the sense organs, the endeavor, the place, and, crucially, the supersoul.
So if you ignore those cosmic factors,
If you act purely through the false ego, I earned this, I built this, you become entangled and bound by the resulting karma. The key is to act as an instrument of a higher purpose.
that transcendental perspective on action moves us seamlessly into modern applications, doesn't it? Starting with management and leadership.
For entrepreneurs, the Gita provides this crucial perspective shift. Strength comes not from controlling the market, but from controlling yourself. It stresses commitment to a higher, purpose-centric goal, the mission, and sticking to the path, cherishing the journey more than the immediate, often fluctuating destination.
It also sets a very high ethical standard for leadership, the need to act as a role model.
Yes. Leaders must act in a way they wish to be emulated throughout the organization. If a leader acts with rajasic attachment, the entire organization becomes greedy and anxious. Good leadership requires proactive action driven by wisdom, not reaction driven by fear.
And the Gita provides a very stark moral compass.
It does. It identifies lust, wrath, and avarice, or greed, as the 3 gates of hell that destroy a person's ability to lead wisely. Ethical leadership is about conquering these internal flaws first.
The influence of the Gita in political and social reform is so visible through the life of Mahatma Gandhi. His application of these doctrines just fundamentally changed history.
Gandhi used the Ahimsa doctrine and the concept of the Sthita Praja to form the backbone of Satyagraha. He needed to convince a population that was steeped in traditional renunciation that action was necessary.
Not just for political freedom, but for spiritual emancipation.
He viewed the physical body as a kind of prison, and selfless action, Karma Yoga, as the key to breaking free, even while staying politically engaged. He stressed that the process must be purified.
Peace achieved through nonviolence.
And he linked the freedom fighters to the Gita's ideal of the Sthita Praja one, who maintained steady wisdom and samatva, equanimity, under the most severe colonial pressure and violence. This allowed the movement to remain ethically sound, even when faced with incredible provocation.
Gandhi also used the Gita to justify radical social reform, specifically eradicating untouchability and promoting respect for women.
This is one of the most powerful modern applications. He drew justification from the verses that preach samadarshina, equal vision.
The idea that the enlightened person sees with equal vision a learned Brahmin, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and an outcast.
That idea that the Supreme Lord resides equally in all beings was Gandhi's justification for promoting equal rights for all, and that included women, whom Krishna also explicitly states can attain the supreme destination through devotion.
And this duty extended outward to Lokasagra.
Selfless work for the welfare of the world. Gandhi constantly advised freedom fighters to follow Nishkama Karma dedicated to Lokasagra, citing the example of King Janaka, who worked tirelessly without a sense of I and mine.
He even redefined Jnana again.
He did. He suggested that instead of burning wood in a ritual, laboring for one's food, and performing service like using the spinning wheel, the Kadi should be seen as the modern yajna dedicated to societal welfare. Action became worship, and service became sacrifice.
We've seen how the Gita inspired leaders toward constructive action, but we should also address how some Western philosophers interpreted it, or perhaps misinterpreted the text.
Arthur Schopenhauer.
Yes, let's dive into his analysis.
Schopenhauer was a giant who encountered the Gita and the Upanishads, but he filtered them through his own deeply pessimistic lens. He saw life as suffering driven by a blind, irrational will, and therefore liberation must mean the total annihilation of that will.
He sought liberation through nirvana, but he defined it as the cessation of desire and the extinguishing of the fundamental life force. That sounds profoundly different from the Gita's message of active liberation.
It's a massive philosophical divergence. Schopenhauer, influenced by certain interpretations of Buddhism and Advaita Vedanta that focused on the illusion of individuality, believed that since the body and its desires cause pain, ultimate freedom lies in becoming zero, attaining complete extinction of the phenomenal self.
But the Gita, especially through the lens of Karma-Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, offers a direct critique of annihilating the will.
It argues that Schopenhauer misunderstood the nature of the Atman. Since the individual self, the jiva, is immortal, the will that animates it is also eternal. It can't be annihilated, only redirected.
Krishna says no one can refrain from acting, not even for a moment.
Exactly. Trying to stop the will is temporary, like holding your breath. So the liberation presented in the Gita is not about stopping the will, but about purifying the will.
It's a transformation, not an extinction.
Precisely. True liberation, moksha, is achieved by directing the will towards spiritual consciousness and serving the Supreme. We have to cleanse the diseased, materialistic form of desire and exchange the inferior taste of material happiness for the superior taste of spiritual action and knowledge. Schopenhauer's quest for nihilistic nirvana just missed the Gita's ultimate goal, which is devotion and purified, selfless willing.
This philosophical depth connects right back to modern science, doesn't it? Particularly with cosmology and the fundamental nature of consciousness.
Which remains baffling to materialist science, the fact that black hole experts and cosmologists still turn to these ancient traditions. It speaks to the limitations of current scientific paradigms. Modern science is restricted by what it can observe.
As the black hole expert Pankaj Joshi noted, science is severely restricted to events from which a light signal can actually reach us.
And that restriction forces cosmologists to rely on major, often unproven assumptions, like the universe being spatially homogeneous. It means we might be missing entirely different dimensions or realities. Ancient philosophy offers alternatives that challenge these convenient grooves of thought.
And the Gita's framework easily incorporates concepts that modern physics is only now theorizing, like the multiverse.
The idea of parallel universes is completely natural within Indian traditions. Krishna offers Arjuna a glimpse of his Vishvarupa, his universal form, which contains countless cosmic creations and annihilations happening simultaneously. This notion of multiple parallel worlds or lokas operating on vast timescales is just standard fare.
This brings us to the primacy of the mind. Ancient traditions always prioritize knowing the self as the prerequisite for understanding cosmic reality.
And modern science struggles immensely with the nature of subjective awareness. The Gita presents itself as a psychological manual. You could view Krishna's counseling of Arjuna as an ancient, sophisticated form of cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. Well, he directly challenges Arjuna's cognitive distortions, the lamentation, the fear, the confusion of the temporary body with the eternal self. By fostering samatvam, or equanimity, and demanding action without attachment to results, Nishkama Karma, Krishna gives Arjuna the tools to maintain emotional and mental balance in the face of success and failure.
It's the ultimate antidote to performance anxiety and existential distress.
It's a complete framework for mental hygiene. It truly is a framework for living a fully engaged and conscious life, whether you are fighting a war, leading a company, or simply struggling to find peace in your personal existence.
It refuses to let us retreat from life's duties,
while simultaneously providing the profound intellectual and spiritual tools to prevent those duties from binding us to suffering. That synthesis action integrated with consciousness is the epitome of human wisdom.
We have dissected the Gita today, focusing heavily on its unique contribution of Karma-Yoga. If you enjoyed this deep philosophical conversation, imagine experiencing the timeless wisdom of Krishna's speech, rendered verse by verse into stirring English poetry.
That is our final recommendation. Please listen to the Bhagavad Gita poetic rendition for the full spiritual and literary experience. It was a true labor of love, and the link is right there in the description.
We also want to remind you that the content we create here on this deep dive is entirely open source. It's built upon the sources that you, the listener, provide us from all over the web. We're aiming for a true symbiosis of artificial and natural intelligence.
And we absolutely invite that collaboration. If you feel our analysis is even a teeny tiny bit off base, or if you have a source that challenges or deepens the discussion, please share it in the comments. We are always looking to refine and perfect our understanding.
And we're also looking for human collaborators who would like to review and critique our content before we publish. If you want to help ensure the highest quality of intellectual rigor, please drop a comment.
As always, keep searching.
Keep the quest on.